So I went to grad school for journalism at that time, and wound up being a news director and doing some things like that. And then, I was getting very into health and environmental issues as kind of a reporting specialty, and started taking some classes at the Columbia Public Health School, and decided that I would finish that to at least a master's degree, because I was into it, and I was thinking, well, journalists as generalists, that's okay, but if you can really know something about something, A, it's a service to the world, and B, it was a career move. It was something I was hoping would deepen my ability to get different kinds of work and maybe write. Maybe I would wind up on a faculty somewhere as either a public health or a journalism professor and still be able to do sort of deep journalism on health and environment related topics. And that never came about because just as I was finishing that degree, I got this job.
And so that was not sort of a start of a departure from radio or journalism. That was sort of in conjunction and, in your mind, a complement.
It was for me. Mm-hmm. And, I think that the skills that I learned, because it was a policy-oriented public health degree, the policy analysis, health, national politics, and especially environmental law and national politics, so informed, as someone who had not lived in or worked in Washington, so informed my understanding of how laws are made, how policy is made, how lobbying is done, what's good scientific analysis or social scientific analysis of what makes good policy as opposed to bad policy. From an academic standpoint, what's the media's role in either emphasizing things that are important or things that are just sensational, or being really stupid about science. So a lot of things that I learned in that public health degree, coursework, have really informed and I think helped me to do a good job at this. With Hurricane Sandy, where again there were so many people, in a way more people directly affected, though it doesn't necessarily change the world in the way that 9/11 does, but I think it's changed our understanding of the environment that we're living in almost as profoundly. And that those are sort of, twin defining moments in the 25 years that I've been.
Obviously, there was a significant change post 9/11, as you mentioned. But before that, in your time in New York City and your time on the air, have you sort of cataloged other big, significant moments that have signified a shift for you in the city? Anything that's spanned a little bit of time that's signified a shift, or specific events?
Well, I think there have been maybe not so much concrete events like that, because those were both so shocking and out of the blue, and it's one way one minute and another way that changes the world another minute. But I think that the gradual, I love this city, and I love watching the gradual unfurling of events in this city. At the time that the show started, I think there was a lot of uncertainty about where New York was headed. Was it going to go into a downward spiral like it had in the 70s? There was another deep recession going on. Real estate prices were falling. Anybody who was very lucky, who was, I guess they got lucky by being smart, if they were around then and had a little money and bought some real estate during that dip in the late 80s and early 90s, because we know how things exploded after that. Crime was so high at that time, and people did not know if that was going to be able to come under control, to be gotten under control. And so New York, it's just been amazing to watch the growth of the city, the resurgence of the city. And it's not just a New York thing. The whole nation started to get crime under control in a different way at that time, even though New York was a leader. People are fleeing toward the city instead of away from the city. I think we're not in the time in our history as a country anymore where suburban America rules. I think urban America is really coming back as a place that's desirable. So, looking at the big arc of history, the different details and the different trends that started to bring New York City to where it is today, has been an amazing thing to be able to watch unfold. And yet at the same time, we have all this striking, savage inequality in the city that, maybe was getting overlooked for a while during the Bloomberg years, and that de Blasio so successfully ran on and tapped into something that's really, really out there. When, the stat came out, Bloomberg's own stat in his last year from his administration, that 46% of the city lives in poverty or in near poverty. And how did that go with the narrative of, big, desirable, shiny, new New York that has come back better and stronger than anybody ever expected after 9/11? Both things are true. And so when I look at politically the Bloomberg administration and the de Blasio administration, I actually think that we've been lucky to have two consecutive mayors who are so concerned about the public welfare. There are politicians who are in it as a business, and we could name any number of them. And there are politicians who are really in it as a public service. And I happen to think that both Bloomberg and de Blasio are in it as a public service. They have different strengths and weaknesses. I don't have to sit here and tell you what Bloomberg's blind spots were. I think people know that too well. And yet, he was really trying and succeeded in a lot of ways in furthering the recovery of the city from 9/11 and then moving forward on a lot of things. Left certain things behind in a dramatic way, which de Blasio is now, I think, with, again, this very civic-minded attitude that he's had his whole life, trying to pick up those pieces and move forward on those. Generally, the combination leaves me optimistic for the future of the city.
So you said you love this city, and I think anyone who listens to your show knows that for even one show. What are some of your favorite things to do in the city, or some of your favorite places or neighborhoods, or any of those little details that you enjoy about the city?
Oh, that's so hard. Well, let's see. I'm a bicycle rider, so I do like to go exploring. I'm not big on riding in traffic. I know that's what we're supposed to do now, and and I do it some to get around. But watching the bike path on the west side, which is my commute home on days that are, nice enough for it, and where my schedule allows, from lower Manhattan to upper Manhattan, almost the whole length of that bike path is such a joy. And going around the Bronx on my bicycle is a surprising pleasure. There are great green spaces and great bike routes in the borough of the Bronx. So there's one thing I'll give a plug to. And, going to different neighborhoods, seeing the different ethnic restaurants in Jackson Heights, Inwood. Those are some of my favorite things. Different music venues, outdoor concerts. I'm not being very original here.
No. I mean, I'm sure there's so many parts and things.
Some of my things.
So, lastly, just sort of, what are you looking forward to next? What do you, you're marking 25 years. I'm sure you'll celebrate a little bit. Is that
sure?
On
We'll
the
celebrate
agenda?
it a little bit. My general attitude is head down. What are we doing tomorrow? One running joke with my friends and other people is, I'll run into somebody later in the day and say, "What'd you do on the show today?" Let's see, today. When was that? And I say, I don't know, but I can tell you what we're doing tomorrow. And that's kind of where my head is usually at. We are tentatively planning a series, working title, and this all may change, but we're tentatively planning for the 25th anniversary a series called 25 Follow-Ups, where we will look at one story from each of the 25 years that begs for a follow-up.
Wow.
And they may be the biggest thing that happened in the world at that time. We were on the air for 6 weeks when the Berlin Wall fell, so we obviously had an impact. But, hey, 1989, the fall of communism, wow. Or the election of New York's first black mayor, almost the same day that the Berlin Wall fell. Epical change in those very few weeks that the show was on the air. So maybe we'd follow up on one of those things from that year. Maybe it would be things that are more whimsical or more beneath the headlines from some other years. So we'll try to commit an act of
Those are big.
journalism along the way in celebrating our 25th anniversary with 25 follow-ups.
Tough choices.
Tough choices, but an embarrassment of riches.
Yeah. Right, and we look forward to that in the fall sometime.
Yeah, probably right around the 25th anniversary, which is late September.
Great. Well, thank you, Brian. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ben.